Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Nerdstalgic podcast. I'm your host, Luke the Sloth. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good. As per usual, before we get into today's wonderful, frigid, freezing episode and topic, and makes me wonder as to why they kept making these movies, I want to do a bit of housekeeping because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So 3 things you can do for me before we get to today's episode. Number 1, make sure that you follow me on Twitter. Number 2, if you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And finally, if you listen to this on Spotify on your mobile phone, don't forget to leave a 5-star rating. If you can do all 3 things for me right at the beginning of the episode, I will be eternally grateful. So today we're going to be looking at Ice Age Collision Course from 2016, the final Ice Age movie. I'm going to be talking about my memories about it in a minute because I've got a lot to say. But I'm going to do the quick introduction first. So this is a part of my Blue Sky Studios series. For anybody that doesn't know, I have been going through since possibly last year, I think maybe even my first ever season, I've been looking through the Blue Sky Studios movies. From all the way from the Ice Age, which was their first ever movie, to Robots, to Ice Age 2, Horton Is a Who, Ice Age 3, Rio, Ice Age 4, Epic, Rio 2, the Peanuts movie, and now Ice Age Collision Course, and then finally we'll wrap it up with Ferdinand and Spies in Disguise, more than likely in season 3 at this point next year. So, really, really busy, lot to do, and I've been enjoying it so far, but I want to talk about my memories of this movie because I don't have many, but from what I can remember, it always comes back to they brought Neil deGrasse Tyson into this film and they did a play on words, and because of the whole point of this movie, from what I remember, and I've only seen it maybe once in full and a few other times in part, because I've said this many times, and if you listen to the series so far, you will know that I don't dislike and I don't hate Ice Age. One of my favorite animated movies of all time is the original Ice Age because I think it's just fantastic. It's a perfect story. There's a lot to it. I did a review on my channel. I've even went over to Review It Yourself with Sean. I went on his podcast and I spoke about how much I loved Ice Age, and we broke it down even a lot deeper there than I did on my one. I'm a big lover of that film, but I just feel that it should have ended there. That it should have been like Robots, another great movie by Blue Sky that should have been a one and done, one story, and then you move on and you do another. But because this is a business and because Ice Age made mega money, they kept making them and they kept going and going and going. And it actually wasn't until I think I didn't start actually enjoying myself with the Ice Age movie until Continental Drift. And that was only because finally with Continental Drift they went back to the basics. They went back to what made the first Ice Age good, which was actually bring the trio back, which is Diego, Sid and Manny. Bring them back together, and that is what makes that movie so good, is because it's just them having an adventure. And it's fantastic, and that's what you want really from Ice Age, not all this other stuff that they added in and all the places they were going and like adding in dinosaurs. Yes, I love dinosaurs, but it didn't get interesting until the dinosaurs were there. Up until then, it felt like a short film with Sid. You know what I mean? And yet, like I know it seems like I'm being negative. I'm not. It's just a fact of I just feel like it shouldn't have got this far, to be honest. And admittedly, I've only ever seen this movie once in full, and I've seen it drips and drabs here and there. And apart from, honestly, Scrat finding a spaceship and then somehow that makes an asteroid like a giant crystal trying to crash into the planet, and then Neil deGrasse Weasel, I think he's called, is in it. And that is as far as I know and can remember. I don't remember anything else of this film. So I might be wrong. The final Ice Age movie might be the one that kind of saves it all. More than likely, I doubt it. But I've been proven wrong before when it comes to movie reviews and things like that. So who knows? But yeah, my memories of this one is they should have stopped at the first film, but they kept going. And I was reasonably surprised with the last film, which Continental Drift, to be honest. So maybe this one will surprise me. Maybe it won't. We will see when we break it down. As for the plot summary, so it's a short one. This is from IMDb. So get my movie guy voice on. So, Scrat's epic pursuit of his elusive acorn catapults him outside of Earth, where he accidentally sets off a series of cosmic events that transforms and threatens the planet. To save themselves from peril, Manny, Sid, and Diego and the rest of the herd leave their home and embark on a quest full of thrills and spills, highs and lows, laughter and adventure, while traveling to exotic new lands and encountering a host of colourful new characters. So that is your plot summary from IMDb. As for the cast list, so obviously we have Ray Romano as back as Manny, Dennis Leary back as Diego, John Leguizamo back as Sid, Chris Wedge as Scat, Stephanie Bariz as Gertie, Robert Cardo as Frankie Bobby, Neil deGrasse Tyson as Neil DeBuck Weasel, Adam Devine as Julian, Jesse Tyler Ferguson as Shangri Lama, Max Greenfield as Roger, Jessie J as Brooke, Queen Latifah is Ellie, Jennifer Lopez as Shafira, George Lucas, but not that George Lucas, is Grandpa Mohawk. Andrew Christopher Nichols is Andrew Aardvark. Some great news here. Nick Offerman is Gavin. Kiki Palmer as Peaches. And James Paul Bubo as Panicked Start. Don't even remember that character. So that is your cast of the movie. As for the production, so the concept of collision course was deeply rooted in a scene from the first film where Manny, Sid, and Diego and the little child are walking through an ice cave and they spot a spaceship that's encased in ice, an item that inspired this film in the series. As with the third film, which was also inspired by the ice cave scene in which the herd comes across a dinosaur that was encased in ice, the team went back to the first film to search for a possible inspiration for this new installment, which says to me they were looking for a story. They didn't have a plan of the story. They were looking for one, which means, well, what it means is the fact of they were made, or they were looking to make another movie because of money, so that's all that says to me, is the fact of the desperate side of it, of like, well, the last movie made loads of money, so we need to make a sequel. We've got any ideas? Oh, let's just go back and search for some ideas from the last film. That's what that says to me, but draw your own conclusions if you want. Anyway, the characters were first hand-drawn on animation software, complete with color and animated clips of the characters doing specific actions. They were then sent to be hand sculpted with clay and ultimately scanned into CGI software and animated around the model. The Figaro aria sequence, which involved Buck saving an egg from a trio of Dromosauruses, proved to be one of the most challenging sequences for Blue Sky Studios animators, as it involved a continuous, uninterrupted shot that ran for around 2 minutes. It was one of the first scenes put into production, but also one of the last to exit production due to its time-consuming and difficult structure. As the team would only be able to produce 3 or 4 seconds of footage a week, the recording session took place in Los Angeles and California, since most of the actors lived there while the studio is based in New York. Director Michael Tumamir, co-director Galen Tan Cho, would take turns traveling to LA to head the recording sessions. In the film, Simon Pegg sang a rendition of Figaro. Jesse Tyler Ferguson was offered the role of Shangri-La Lama, which is a great name, by the way, after the producer saw his performance in Modern Family. It is his first time working in an animated film. Ferguson blew out his voice on the first day of the recording session because he did a lot of yelling. He then took a few days off and came back to finish his part. He admitted that he struggled the first time he heard his voice come out of the character's mouth. As a result, he decided to start watching interviews of himself on television because he found them to be too weird. So that is the production. Yeah, it just feels like they were pulling at straws. Because I don't know if it's true or not. I know it says it here, but I was always told that if you watch the first Ice Age movie and you look at that cave scene, it does predict all the episodes of what's going to happen with Ice Age moving forwards after that. Like when Sid sees all the sort of evolutions of himself, as you see all the different versions of his family and the way they are, you get to see the dinosaur, you see the alien and stuff like that. So maybe it wasn't planned then, but that's just how it planned out. It wouldn't surprise me if they went back for the third movie. Like, so what should we do? Oh, look, giant dinosaur. Let's just do dinosaurs. Oh, look, what should we do now? UFO. The UFO is still in the ice. Let's go do that. And it just, I don't know. It's one that kind of take with what you want, but my take of it is they were clutching at straws. It was just like, what shall we do? Oh, let's just go back and look for a possible inspiration. What could we do? So they didn't have a story, basically. It was just like, let's find what we did from the past and, that. So that doesn't give me any hope to go back and watch this movie. But, I might be surprised. Like I said, I don't remember it very well, so we'll see. As for the release, so Ice Age Collision Course was originally scheduled for release on July the 15th, 2016. However, it was delayed to July the 22nd to avoid competition with the Ghostbusters reboot that was also scheduled for July 15th. An extended sneak peek of the movie in the form of a short film called Cosmic Scratastrophe was attached to theaters showings of Blue Sky's movie, the Peanuts movie, on November the 6th, 2015. The teaser poster of the film was revealed on November the 6th, 2015, and the words "Bring Scrat Home," spoofing The Martian. The short film was released later on November the 9th, 2015, on 20th Century Fox's official YouTube page. So that is the release. A little bit more sort of about the reception. So Ice Age Collision Course grossed $64 million in North America and $344 million in other territories for a worldwide total of $408.5 million against a production budget of $105 million. In terms of total earnings, its biggest marketing outside of North America were China with $66 million, with the country being also its largest territory overall. France got $26.3 million, Brazil got $25 million, Germany $24.7 million, and Mexico $22.2 million. So it wasn't as successful in the box of the other one. So if we do a quick, so before we move on to that review, so let's have a look at how much the first Ice Age made. So first Ice Age, it was made for $59 million. It made $383.2 million, which is a huge bonus in terms of how much it made. So obviously that promotes the sequel. Sequel comes out. So again, they make the sequel for $80 million. It makes $667 million, which again, gangbusters, it absolutely kills. Third movie, Dinosaur One, they made that for $90 million. So they upped the budget by another $10 million, sorry. Then that made more. So that made $886.7 million. So it was like, oh, well, that movie did good, so let's make another one. Ice Age Continental Drift. So that one, they made for $95 million, and it made $877 million. Again, even though I don't like it, it makes sense as to why they kept making them, because you could make them for little and people would show. So I don't blame them as a business going, you know what, this Ice Age thing, let's keep riding this gravy train. You know what I mean? But it didn't end well, because again, they were like, okay, this next one, it's going to do gangbusters, so let's up the budget, $105 million. It only made $408.5 million, which, considering if you look back at all the other Ice Age movies made, that's very much of what happened. And I feel like what happened is more than likely what happened with a lot of movies is I feel like people just got bored of it. With Ice Age, it just felt like they were running on steam. Like, granted that the last movie was good, but as I think I said in that review, you could have ended the Ice Age series on that film, and that could have been like, the first one's a good send off. But if you wanted to end it, you could have ended it there, made all your money, and that's what would have been great. And then you could have come back, 5, 6 or so years later, and go, you know what? Let's do Ice Age again, or let's go, instead of doing Ice Age, let's do Sid's story, or a story with Diego, or something like that, or they could have kept going with a TV show like most animated studios do. Let's do an Ice Age TV show, or let's do a Scrat TV show, or just do loads more Scratch short films, this sort of thing. But they didn't. They wanted to keep doing the money, and I can't blame them. If the last movie made $887 million dollars, I don't blame them for going, let's make another one. But I think this was the nail in the coffin, where they realized, yeah, Ice Age is done. We've ran the tank dry. It's not going anymore. And to be honest, if you actually look at how much that movie made, and then you look how much like the Peanuts movie made, that made only $246.2 million. Rio 2, again, that only made 49.8, 428.8 million. Sorry. Epic, that made 268.4 million. Rio made 484 million. So the 400 million sort of range is kind of what Blue Sky Movies made. They made close to 200 to 400 million, which is their usual one. And then whenever they did an Ice Age movie, that is whenever it would be really, really successful. So I get it. I really, really do. I feel like I'm rambling here. And maybe I am. I don't know. But yeah, I'm going to go off now and stop my rambling, because I feel like I'm just going to go on and on and on about this. I want to go off and watch the final Ice Age movie and give you my thoughts and feelings. It might be good. It might not be. But as always, I'll go in with my glass empty and judge it for what it is as the final Ice Age movie. And then when we come back, I'll let you know if it's worth it or not. So I will see you in a minute. Allons-y. Right, so I've not long finished watching Ice Age Collision Course. Usually when I do these reviews, any sort of review at all, as soon as I've finished it, I try to get sort of my finger on the pulse. I try to get there as soon as possible in the booth, I say booth, my bedroom, to record my thoughts and feelings, straight away, organic, what I feel. But with this one, I left it a bit. It's only been a few hours, but I've left it a bit since watching the movie, because I wanted to sit here and really think over what Ice Age is, where it started, where we've gone through on this journey, and where we are now with the final film. And don't get me wrong, this movie's not deep, it's not complex, it's not as, I would say, it's not as advanced in terms of story and characters as the first one is. It looks pretty, but it's not as advanced as the first movies. I still say that Ice Age 1 is king, and they should have stopped at Ice Age. But like I said in the introduction, it made gangbusters, it made stupid money. So, of course, they wanted to keep making these films. And that's understandable. It's a business. I won't get into it again. I explained it to in full in the introduction. But I wanted to kind of just reflect on my time with Ice Age and where I feel like the series has gone. And I enjoyed the last movie. I enjoyed Continental Drift. I thought it was back to form. It had a good ending. Things could have ended there, to be honest. If they need, because they wanted to carry it on. If we had to finish it anywhere apart from the beginning, I would have said, let's finish it at the last film. But no, they decided they wanted to do one more film. And as I mentioned in the introduction, they went back and they looked at the first film as kind of inspiration, what they should do. And then they found the alien spaceship and they decided that's what we're going to do. And again, like I said, it reeks of, pinching at straws. It reeks of desperation, of like, we don't have a story, so we've got to go back and look for one in prior movies. And that's kind of what it feels here. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm going to say this completely. The movie isn't trash. The movie isn't terrible. But at the same stage, I'm sitting here, like I say, the same way I felt with Ice Age 2. It's not needed. They don't need to do it, because really what this movie is, it's a glorified Scrat story, just with Ice Age painted on the top. Because that's what it is. Usually with Ice Age, you have Scrat at the beginning, then you have the characters and their story, and their story is the main focal piece, is the whole point of the movie. And then, you'd have the heartfelt moments, and then you get the comedy beats by Scrat and him trying to do something with his nut. And it's funny, and especially in the first movie, you have those really hard-hitting emotional moments. And then it would take you out of it just a bit, show you a bit of comedy to let you know, yeah, you are watching a kid's movie, haha, funny, rat gets hit by a lightning, and then you go back into it. But it's done in such a way where it's like a refresher. It's like, oh, you don't feel sad. It's a kid's movie, bring you back up, and kind of carries on with the story. With this, if anything, I would say this movie is 90% Scrat, 10% everybody else. And if anything, 10% of the greatest hits. So everybody loves Scrat. I've said it many times, I'd happily watch a full feature film of Scrat. Maybe it would get boring, I don't know. But Scrat works because of the old adage of Mr. Bean and Charlie Chaplin and silent film. You don't need to know, the character doesn't need to talk to know how the character's feeling and the emotions. You just, the certain sounds here and there, and just being able to see what the character's doing, you can either see how they feel. And it works with many other things. And what I love with this movie is that there are funny moments, and there are a lot of risky jokes. There's a lot of moments where, like, a lot of the jokes with Scrat and on this alien spaceship goes a bit too far at times. Are very adult, but it's very much the fact of, okay, that's funny, that's charming. And I wanted to stay in that pocket. I want to stay in that moment of spending time with Scrat on the spaceship as he explores the ship and gets up to hijinks. But we don't. You get those moments, which I say is like 90% of the film, and then you get the small 10%, which is you have the herd and you have the whole clans together, and you have this side story, basically. And I'm going to go straight into the story. You have this whole side plot where Manny and his love interest, Ellie, are basically, they've come to the conclusion that, like, Peaches has grown up. She's found her mate of herself. They're getting ready to sort of leave the nest. They're not ready as parents to say goodbye to them. So they're trying to kind of scare them, be like, oh, do you think you can go on your own? You think you'd be okay? Is this the right decision you're making? And before, all that can sort of get to a point where they start to, like, fall out. Scrat in his spaceship, he crashes into a planet, blows the planet smithereens. Inside that planet is a giant magnetic asteroid that's heading towards Earth, and the herd has got to figure out a way to stop this asteroid from hitting the planet. And then as you go on for the story, you see more sort of moments from Scrat on the spaceship trying to get his nut and piloting the spaceship and all that kind of stuff. You do get the greatest hits. You bring back the dinosaurs. They bring back Buck, which again, I love Buck. And here he's just his wild, crazy self. But again, there are many moments where I'm sitting there and it goes, this is reeks of desperation. It just feels like they didn't have an idea. So they was like, well, let's bring the greatest hits back. People love Scrat, so let's show more Scrat, in space, in zero gravity, in an alien spaceship, getting up to hijinks. Let's show Sid being silly. Let's show more of Buck, because everybody loves Buck and everybody misses Buck and everybody wishes Buck was back. And it goes to show, because one of the last things that Blue Sky Studios did before they got shut down was the Buck Wild mini series that is on Disney Plus. And again, that just shows that people love the character, and so they thought people loved it, so they brought him back. And people loved the dinosaurs, they brought the dinosaurs back. And it just feels like the fact of you're just pulling at straws here and there. And for a film that's an hour and 27 minutes long, it feels not longer, just kind of fact of it just feels rushed. It's like we get from scene to scene to scene to scene to scene very quickly. And there's not a lot, to me, there wasn't a lot of heart, there wasn't a lot of emotion like the first film. like even Continental Drift, it was nice to have the three amigos back, to have the three main characters from the first one back together, and then you brought them back with the rest of Havelli and all that, and it was all right. But here, it's like they're going backwards. It's like they're going back to Ice Age 2. That's what it feels like with me. It feels like Ice Age 2 again, where I'm sitting there and I'm like, this didn't need to be made. You didn't need another Ice Age movie. And this being the fifth film in the series, it does have very sort of tiredness. I'm sitting there going, some parts are funny, and I'm watching it with my parents. My dad fell asleep. My mum's giggling a little bit here and there to some of the jokes, and I'm giggling as well because again, I'm a big child. Some of these jokes are not bad, but I'm still sitting there going, this is just not what I remember Ice Age being. This. And I can see now why I don't really remember this movie that much. Only after watching it the first time, why it never stuck with me, because it's not a memorable movie. It is a movie that I feel like I will forget quite quickly after seeing it. And even now, even though I only watched it like 2 hours ago, I'm literally in my head trying to go through what happened in the story, and certain parts is missing because certain parts were just like, it was one of those. Well, sort of the only thing I can say is that noise, because I can't recall a lot of the information. And usually I can with movies and games and stuff. I can retain information quite easily, especially if I've enjoyed it. But with this one, a lot of the information didn't get stuck, and all I can really remember are the silly skits with Scrat on the spaceship. And even like the fact of the side character where you've got Neil deGrasse Weasel, Neil DeBuck Weasel. He's there, and he comes into the story every now and then, and kind of just basically becomes Neil deGrasse Tyson, explaining why this is wrong, why that didn't happen. And there's even a funny cutscene at the very end, like there's an end credit scene where he's like, "Oh, Mars used to be filled with water and life," and there's like, I wonder how it lost its atmosphere and lost all its water. And in the background, you just have Scrat in the spaceship crashing onto into Mars, just and evaporating all the water and turning it back into the red planet. That was funny. It's silly, but again, I wanted more of that. It says something when I want to know more about, and I want to spend more time with a side character than the characters that I grew up to love. And it's very sad to see something that you love, something you grew up with, end like this. Again, it's not a terrible movie, and I'm sure if you have kids, or if you have somebody younger in your family, they might get a kick out of it. They might enjoy it, but it stings more for me knowing that I grew up with Ice Age. And I outgrew Ice Age. You should never outgrow, like, I know it sounds a bit odd to say, but you should never really outgrow the things that you love. In terms of, they should stay in the past, and you should grow up and you should look back on them fondly with memories. They shouldn't grow up with you. I.e. Ice Age. The first one was in 2002, I believe, and this is 2016. At this point, I was in college. And I'd gotten too old for it, and they'd made that many Ice Age movies. I weren't going to go see this. I wasn't interested. I still, again, same then as I do now. I still think the first Ice Age movie was the best, and they didn't need to make more. So I wasn't going to see this. So it was people that were my age, maybe a bit older, who had kids, would go take their kids to see this, and just to think how disappointing it would be. And like I said, this movie didn't do very well. It actually did quite less than most of Blue Sky Studios films, and it goes to show it just feels flat. It just feels like it's the franchise is tired, or at least the writers are tired, that they're only doing it because it makes money. And I can see what's Minions doing this. I can see Despicable Me doing this. I still haven't seen the newest Despicable Me because I don't want to. I'm not interested. It doesn't matter if you've made the Minions with superpowers. I don't care. And I just see that happening with Minions. I see that happening with so many other franchises, with, like Toy Story. Toy Story is the only one I'd say that has done movies, and I've gone, Toy Story 3 was incredible. It should have ended there. Then they made Toy Story 4, and I watched it, and I cried my eyes out. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, okay, I was wrong. You can end it here. And now they're doing Toy Story 5. And I'm like, knowing Pixar, it's going to be fantastic. But it's the same thing of like, even if that movie's fantastic and it makes me cry, and I sit there and go, it should have ended here. Still, part of me will be like, it should have ended at 3. No matter how good Ice Age 4 was and how good potentially Ice Age 5 would be, some things should stay in the past, and you shouldn't keep bringing them back. And Ice Age was one of them. It possibly Toy Story could be another. It's going to happen to Despicable Me. And it's a shame. It is, because you have these incredible stories, incredible characters, but they just keep going. And I get it. It's a business. They want to make money. But at the end of the day, you've got to realize there's sometimes you've just got to stop the bus, get off, and then start a new adventure. You know, use all that money that you made from last movie to make some original stories. And if those original stories don't work, okay, you tried. Maybe then go back to what worked. But try something new. And I know I haven't finished yet with Blue Sky. I've got 2 films left. But that's the thing. That's the kind of the conclusion I'm coming with Blue Sky at this point, is the fact of they saw blood in the water. They saw the money. And then they just went with the films that made the most money. You know, Rio was all right. Then they made Rio 2, and it wasn't all right. You know, and Ice Age makes loads of money, so they kept making more and more and more Ice Age. But I'm like, well, the Peanuts movie, yeah, it didn't do very well, but that is an incredible film. So good. So good. I love that film. Robots, another one, underrated. No one ever talks about Robots. I don't know why. It's another incredible movie. But again, it was a standalone. Didn't do very well. It did well, but not as well as all the others have done. So and again, it doesn't need a sequel. Neither did Ice Age, but Ice Age made loads of money. Robots didn't, so they kept following on, and I get it, you know. And then they started doing, after sort of Ice Age ended, then they started to do the original IP again. But the thing is, and we'll get there when we get there, but the thing is that it came to, by the time that this Ice Age came out, I feel like a lot of people just stopped going to see Blue Sky Studio movies because it was the fatigue. It was the fact of, yeah, you're now starting to do original stories, or at least sort of adaptations from books. With Ferdinand, I think Spies in Disguise was the original idea. That you've gotten to the point where people are just like, well, it's too late. It's too late. You should have done maybe 1 or 2 Ice Age movies, and then going, you know what? Let's move on. Let's do something original. Let's do something different. Let's do another hit of Horton Is a Who, and they did with Peanuts. And let's maybe do another Peanuts movie, or let's do another sort of original film, or some sort of already standing license, or whatever. And I feel like that would have worked. But with this one, it just doesn't. And it's a shame, because the presentation is gorgeous. You know, you can really, as you watch these movies, one after the other, you can see that their animation style, that they knew what they were doing. And especially like I say, I go back to Peanuts, looks absolutely brilliant and looks so faithful and so great for what it is. And it was the same with Robots. You watch Robots now. Robots look good then. Robots still looks good now. It's because that biomechanical sort of metal sheen. You know, it's not anything realistic. It's not, no organics. It's all metallic. It's all machines. It's all robots. So it looks good, and it will always look good. And then I just feel like the more technology gets better in terms of TVs and Blu-ray and player and sort of DVD players and all that, you know, it will get better. It's one of those movies that will just age like fine wine. And you know, they always kept that style, but their movies always look gorgeous. Apart from Epic. Epic looked gorgeous and was epic. Well, epic to a point. But it's one of those where you watch and you're like, that doesn't feel like Blue Sky Studios. It's still a good film. But it's, again, that was the only film I think I've watched of theirs so far where I'm like, if you told me it wasn't Blue Sky, I wouldn't have known. But their presentation is gorgeous. This is a gorgeous film, and like they especially do a lot more. Like you can actually see all the hair follicles and all the characters when there's close-ups. You can see all the hairs on Scrat's face, Manny's face, and all that. The animations are great. Characters look great. It still looks and feels like Ice Age. Well, Ice Age up until Ice Age 2 and up to now. Obviously, the first Ice Age is a lot more sort of the beginnings, really. The technology started to improve with Ice Age from Ice Age 2. But still, presentation is there. It's gorgeous. It's still Ice Age. but it's the story that and the presentation and sort of the whole everything about it just feels a sort of cash grab to me. And it fell in that, and that comes to my overall sort of thoughts is that cash grab kind of it went down the toilet. They fell on their asses at the end of the day. They followed the money, didn't have a story, didn't have an idea. They went back to sort of picking at straws from the first movie, the best movie. Saw the alien spaceship. Well, that's it. We'll do that, and then we'll bring back some of the character favorites like Buck and the dinosaurs and all that. And yeah, and then we just added in this whole asteroid story, which I guess, yes, kind of makes sense because again, asteroids, did hit the planet, and then, it's now believed, like with the youngest Dryas impact, that there was an asteroid sort of impact, and that melted all of the ice, and that made the big floods and all that, which then carved through the valleys and then sort of killed off sort of like a lot of the ancient civilizations and all that. Obviously, I'm not here to get into that, but again, there is theories now that was the thing, that happened. So in context, yeah, asteroids did happen and did impact and caused sort of the ice age to end. But it still feels like clutching at straws. So even though this movie isn't bad, it's not terrible. It's not the worst I've ever watched in my life. But they ended on a high note with the first movie, and they ended on a decent note with the last movie, with Continental Drift. Should have ended there. If they had to end anywhere, that should have been the fact of, okay, we've made 4 movies, we made loads of money, they did really, really well. We'll end it here because it ended off on a pretty good conclusion, and then we're gonna go off and make something else, But they didn't do that. And like one thing that kind of not bothered me, but a bit confused me was the fact of, I remember in the last movie that Peaches, Manny and Ellie's daughter, had a love interest. I don't think it was a weasel. I think it was some sort of muskrat maybe, or some sort of tiny mammal anyway. It was a kind of love interest, and they were, fancied each other and all that. And then you get this new movie where you've got that character's gone completely. Like that character's not here at all. And then you've got Adam Devine, who again I love. He's a fantastic actor, great voice actor, really comedic, funny, great guy. I say it like I know him, like I don't know him, but you know what I mean. Like I'm a big fan of his. But they bring him as a love interest, and it just feels forced. It feels the fact of, well, hold on, where's he come from? What happened to? I think it was Darwin, or whatever his name. What happened to the character from the last movie that was meant to be the love interest? Yeah, it makes no sense in terms of, them being together because she's a mammoth and he's like a tiny sort of rat, sort of mammal, whatever. It makes no sense, but that doesn't matter. It's an animated kids movie. It doesn't need to make sense. It's just cute, okay? And yeah, there are moments like that here and there, and like I said, there are some funny moments. And again, if you haven't grown up with Ice Age, if you're a little kid, you'll get some enjoyment out of it. But if you're somebody like me who grew up with Ice Age from the very beginning, and then to watch sort of the series go on and on and on, and then to get to this movie and then just be like, what happened? What happened and why? It's a real shame. And even Nick Offerman, who again I'm a big fan of, and I love him and his comedy, and I've read his books, and I love him in Parks and Rec. Even he couldn't save this movie for me. So yeah, that's my overall thoughts, really, is that it's not terrible. It is a bit of a cash grab, to be honest. That's what it feels like. It's probably not one I'd watch again. And if I'm going to watch any Ice Age movie, it will always be Ice Age 1. That will always be the best. And you can probably hear it in my voice. I just feel defeated. I feel deflated. I feel defeated. I feel let down that it went this long. But yeah, Ice Age is over, but the journey's not over yet. I've still got 2 more movies to go. I've got Ferdinand with John Cena, which is based off a book, and I've got Spies in Disguise with Tom Holland and Will Smith. And then the journey is over. They will come next year because I've got a lot planned for Christmas, which is coming very soon. So I will finish it off in the new year. But yeah, it's been a great year so far, covering Blue Sky movies. I've had a right ball. I've actually found some films that were all right. I know I take the mick out of it, but epic might not have been epic. but it was pretty good. And it's one of those that I was like, you know what? I'd recommend that one. Give that one a go for people. Same with Peanuts. Peanuts was incredible as well. Definitely, if you haven't seen the Peanuts movie, please do yourself a favor. You are missing out on some incredible, not just animation, but storytelling and characters, and just overall, just cinema. Really, the best word I can give is cinema. So do yourself a favor there. And yeah, maybe even go back and watch Ice Age Continental Drift. It's better than what I remember it being, and where the series, if it had to end anywhere, should have ended. So yeah, that's all I have to say really about Ice Age. It's a shame it got to this point. I hate to be deflated on a series that I love so much and characters that I love a lot. But yeah, Ice Age is done. We can tie a bow in it and we can kind of pull it on its way. Yeah, end of Ice Age, end of an era. Oh well, but it's not the end yet. Not the end. I've got some trivia before we wrap things up quite nicely. So the drawing of Sid, the drawing of Sid that Sid gave to Brooke, who's voiced by Jessie J, is the same drawing that he draws on the wall in the first film. Not counting spin-offs, this film makes Ice Age the first ever computer-animated film franchise to feature 5 installments. I don't know if that trivia is still true. As of doing this on the 10th of October, I think it's still true. I'm sure when Toy Story 5 comes out, it will sort of not be the only one. But I'm sure probably Minions and Despicable Me are coming up close on there. I think there's only 4 Despicable Me movies, but then if you add in other Minions films as well, it's over 5. But yeah, it's one of those where you read that and it goes back to what I was saying, is the fact of you shouldn't grow up with certain things in terms of animation, in terms of movies. And this is one of them, is the fact of, yeah, you did 5, great, but you didn't keep the momentum going like Toy Story did. But yeah, so I feel like that will be beat now by Despicable Me and Ice Age. More than likely, it will be Despicable Me that overthrows it, and Toy Story, hopefully, fingers crossed, stops at 5. But again, if it makes $1 billion, they will just make a 6th one. You just know they will. Anyway, this is the longest movie in the franchise. It doesn't feel like it, to be honest. It generally feels very rushed, and it generally feels like it's here and done very quickly. So it doesn't feel like the longest film in the franchise. Sid speaks without a list for the first time in one of the scenes, and the film was originally scheduled for July 15, 2016 release. However, the film was delayed to 2022 to avoid competition with Ghostbusters, as I said in the introduction. And I think I've got one more bit of trivia here. Ethan the Mammoth and Lois the Mole Hog, 2 main characters of Ice Age Continental Drift, were absent from this film, with no mention of them at all. In this film, Peaches is engaged to another mammoth named Julian, who only has 3 lines in Drift. Lewis only has a brief silent cameo for a few seconds at the beginning of the film. Didn't notice that at all. But yeah, so like I said, it was strange that they'd gone missing. Yeah, so that is the trivia I've got for this film. Like I said, it's a shame that it ends this way, but I'll always have Ice Age. Ice Age will always be the best one, in my opinion. And as long as there's Ice Age, there's always something to go back to at the end of the day. So that is the end of it. That's my thoughts and feelings. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you like this movie? I doubt it, but if you do, if it has fans, then by all means do let me know. I want to hear people's thoughts on the Ice Age franchise overall. Like, what is your feelings of all the Ice Age movies? Are you a fan of them all? Did you only ever watch the first one? Did you any point of any of the movies? Did you ever go, you know what, I'm getting off this train, and I haven't watched any more ever since? I want to know these things because again, this is the end. So let me know your thoughts and feelings on Ice Age, on this review. on everything else that I've talked about today. And you can do that by following me on Twitter at Nerdstalgic_pod. You can leave a comment down on YouTube. If you're listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Or, you can put it in the comment section on Spotify. Spotify has a comment section now. So if you listen on Spotify, if you scroll down, you can leave a comment. So you can leave one there. We can talk about Ice Age there. Also, don't forget to rate the review on Spotify, on your mobile phone, 1 to 5 stars. And so that's it from me. I'm going to go off now and wallow in self-pity while I get things ready for the rest of November and Christmas, sorry. And I'm now going to go rest. So I'll see you all in the next episode. Thank you very much for listening. I've been your host, Luke the Human, and I'll catch you all in the next one.